kind and gentle man. He loved everyone, especially children, poor people, and those who were sad or sick. He spent his days walking from town to town, teaching people about God's love. He told wonderful stories called parables that helped people understand how to be good and kind to one another. His words were simple but very powerful. They filled people's hearts with hope and made them feel close to God. People loved to listen to Jesus. Crowds would gather wherever he went. They sat on hillsides and by the sea just to hear his voice. He taught them to love their neighbors as they loved themselves. He said that being kind was more important than being rich. He showed them that even the smallest act of kindness could make a big difference in the world. His message was new and exciting. It wasn't about complicated rules, but about having a loving heart. People felt that Jesus truly understood them and their problems, and they wanted to follow him and learn from him. Jesus did not just speak words of love. He showed love through amazing actions. These special actions are called miracles. A miracle is something wonderful that happens that cannot be explained in an ordinary way. It is like a little piece of heaven touching the earth. The miracles showed people that Jesus had a special power from God. They were signs of God's great love for all people. When people saw these miracles, they were filled with awe and wonder. They knew they were in the presence of someone truly extraordinary, someone sent from God to help and guide them. These amazing stories about Jesus and his miracles were written down in a very important book called the Bible. For thousands of years, people have read these stories. They have been passed down from parents to children. The stories are not just old tales, they are stories that still give people hope and courage today. They remind us that there is goodness and love in the world. They inspire us to believe in things we cannot always see, and to have faith that wonderful things are possible. The miracles of Jesus show us a world filled with endless possibilities and divine love. One of the first miracles Jesus performed was at a wedding party in a town called Cana. A wedding is a very happy celebration, and this one was filled with laughter and dancing. The bride and groom were so happy. But then, a big problem happened. The host ran out of wine to serve the guests. This was very embarrassing. The party was about to be ruined, and the host felt very worried. Jesus' mother, Mary, saw that the host was in trouble. She knew her son could help. She went to Jesus and told him about the problem, trusting that he would know what to do to save the happy day. Jesus saw 6 large stone water jars standing nearby. These jars were empty. He told the servants, "Fill the jars with water." The servants were a little confused, but they did what Jesus asked. They went to the well and carried water back, filling each huge jar right up to the very top. It was a lot of work, but they trusted Jesus. No one knew what he was planning, but a feeling of excitement was in the air. Everyone watched as the servants finished their task, wondering what would happen next. They stood back and waited for Jesus to give his next instruction. Then, Jesus said something simple. "Now take some out and give it to the master of the feast." One servant dipped a cup into a jar. He looked into the cup. It was not water anymore. It was deep red, and it smelled sweet like the best wine. The servant was amazed. He carefully carried the cup to the master of the feast. The master tasted it. His eyes opened wide with surprise. He did not know where this new wine had come from, but he knew it was the most delicious wine he had ever tasted in his entire life. The master of the feast called the groom over. He said, "Everyone serves the best wine first, but you have saved the best for last." The groom was confused, but the servants knew the secret. They knew Jesus had turned plain water into wonderful wine. This miracle saved the party and made everyone very happy. It was the first sign that showed Jesus' friends, called disciples, that he was truly special. They saw his power and his kindness, and their belief in him grew stronger. It showed that Jesus cared about people's happiness, even in small moments. Jesus was famous for his power to heal people who were sick. In those days, many people suffered from illnesses that doctors could not cure. One day, a man who could not see, a blind man named Bartimaeus, heard that Jesus was passing by. He sat by the road, begging for money. When he heard the crowd, he started shouting, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me!" The people in the crowd told him to be quiet, but he only shouted louder. He had heard stories about Jesus, and he had a tiny seed of hope in his heart that maybe, just maybe, Jesus could help him too. Jesus heard the man's cries and stopped. He told the people to bring the man to him. The blind man jumped up and came to Jesus, full of hope and excitement. Jesus looked at him with great kindness and asked a simple question, "What do you want me to do for you?" The man replied without hesitation, "Rabbi, I want to see." His voice was full of faith. He believed completely that Jesus had the power to give him his sight. He trusted that this kind man could change his whole life with just a word or a touch. Jesus smiled and said, "Go, your faith has healed you." In that very instant, something amazing happened. The man's eyes opened. For the first time in his life he could see. He saw the blue sky, he saw the green trees, he saw the faces of the people around him, and he saw the kind face of Jesus. He was so filled with joy that he began praising God and shouting with happiness. The darkness he had lived in for so long was gone, replaced by a world of beautiful color and light. It was a true miracle. The crowd of people who saw this were completely amazed. They had seen something impossible happen right before their very eyes. The man who was once blind did not go back to his spot by the road. Instead, he began to follow Jesus, thanking him and telling everyone what had happened. This miracle and many others like it showed people that Jesus had power over sickness and suffering. He healed people who could not walk, people who could not speak, and people with terrible skin diseases. He brought health and wholeness to everyone he touched. Another incredible story tells of a time when Jesus and his disciples were in a boat on a big lake called the Sea of Galilee. As they were sailing, a very scary storm suddenly appeared. The wind howled and blew with great force. Huge waves crashed over the sides of the boat, filling it with water. The disciples, many of whom were experienced fishermen, were terrified. They thought the boat was going to sink and that they would all drown. The storm was more powerful than anything they had ever seen before. They were filled with fear and felt completely helpless against the raging sea. In the middle of all this chaos, Jesus was peacefully asleep in the back of the boat. The disciples couldn't believe it. They were so scared, and their teacher was sleeping. They rushed to wake him up, shouting, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" They were desperate for him to do something, anything, to save them from the terrible storm. Their fear was so great that they forgot for a moment just how powerful their teacher really was. They needed a reminder of the special power he held. Jesus woke up. He looked at the wind and the waves without any fear at all. He stood up in the rocking boat and spoke to the storm as if it were a person. He said, "Quiet, be still." And then the most amazing thing happened. The wind immediately stopped howling. The giant, angry waves calmed down and became completely smooth. The sky cleared, and a great calm settled over the entire lake. The storm was gone, just like that. The disciples stared in utter amazement, their fear turning into a deep sense of awe. They looked at each other with wide eyes and whispered, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." This miracle showed them that Jesus had power not just over sickness, but over the forces of nature itself. These stories of miracles are more than just unbelievable tales. They are messages of hope. They teach us that even when we feel lost in a storm, there is a power of love that is greater than our fears. They inspire us to have faith and to be kind to one another, just as Jesus was. His miracles remind us that hope can bring light to our darkest moments.